Alright, so we're going to be installing on the van the Backland Expedition aux carriers. So if you're looking for like a super fancy polished video, this isn't going to be it. None of our videos are that. Just a quick walkthrough of what we did and if there's any differences that came up from the video that they posted. So we'll walk you through it. Alright, so first thing I did was just to take off the license plate because that would really suck to forget it and then have to do it later once it's on. Okay, so from the edge here is 5 inches, and then from here, this line here to here is your 2 1/4, and then you're gonna drill a hole to 3/8. And then we usually take a little bit of primer and just put it on here so that it doesn't rust at all. Okay, so now that the hole is primed, you're gonna have these brackets. So it's really important that these ones are going to go on the inside and this is going to go on the outside. So it's got to be in that order, and then you have a nut and a washer. Alright, so now we're going to do, you took the sticky pad off and then it's going to go on like so, and you're just going to press it on. Okay, so he's got it on now. Stuck the pad on nice and tight, and then the bigger one goes on the bottom. There's a smaller one that goes on the top. And then a little bit hard to see, but inside that's where that big rubber, like the big circle was, and then the washer, and then the nut goes on. Alright, so don't do what we just did where you put a hole in the wrong part of your van. You want to measure from the window and the edge of the door, not that line up there. The correct way to measure is from the window line up. Okay, so this one's a little bit different. It just has this pad on it. It's not sticky, and then the smaller bracket is the one that's going to go on the top. So it's going to go through the hole, and then you'll have to reach through. And then this is what the back is going to look like. So foam pad to the inside of the van, and then this will be on the outside. When you're pounding in the carriage bolts for these, just make sure that you check the orientation of these first because they only fit one way. So as you can see, they're designed to be very specific how they fit. If you don't put the carriage bolts in right, there's a chance they don't fit. So make sure you confirm orientation before you do it. Okay, so with these brackets here, as you can see, the holes are actually like slightly too small on purpose, and then you're supposed to pound them in. We don't have a vise, so we're gonna get kind of fancy here and pound them in, but essentially what you wanna do is put them in a vise and then hammer them in so that they're set in there. Oh! All right, so we're trying to get fancy here. So we're trying to hammer it in. It's gonna sit in there like that because that's gonna be the support for the carrier through the doors. And just keeping in mind that you can have the 180 doors, but you can't have the, whatever it is, the 270s that basically go all the way around and touch the side of the van. So if I were to open this up right now, it stops right there. So you can have those doors. If your door continues and folds all the way back farther, like back that way, then that's not the right door. You need to change your brackets. Once you tighten them off, get everything on, and everything is installed, you want to make sure that they're torqued and then drive for a little bit and then torque them again just to make sure everything is nice and tight. When you receive the bumper piece, this kind of like vibration piece, what you get is it looks like this. So you have your bolt head, the nut, and then this piece here. What you need to do is take this, stick it onto there. So I'm gonna do that right now. So taking this off with a sticky, centering it and putting it on like so. There, put some pressure on it, obviously. That. And then what you're actually going to do to install it is have to take this piece off and then this nut off as well to put the bolt through. So there. So then it'll go through, and then once it's through, this piece is going to go onto the back of it. So if we think that this is the carrier kind of in between, like this, then this is going to go on the back side of the carrier so that this can snug up and be tight. So then this would be tight against your carrier there, and then this goes back on again, and then this piece, once it's snugged up against the carrier, then there's no vibration there, and then you would just adjust this to make up that space so that it's pressing against the door, so that you have then like a stable footing for the inside edge of your carrier. Okay, so on ours, the hole for like the little bumper thing was a little bit too small to actually get it in, so we are just gonna bore it out just a little bit so that we can actually get the bolt through it, because it's way too tight. Okay, so now you can see that this pad is there to protect your vehicle, and then you're just gonna spin this now until it is snug against the edge of the van. As we have sound effects from my daughter, so you're gonna spin this, and so that it's now snug against here, and then that way this adds as kind of like a third support. So you'll actually have a support up there that's mounted, a support there that's mounted, and then a support there that's mounted on the one side, and then the two hinges. You're gonna rest it on there and then tighten it off. You want it to be like tight enough that it's gonna hold, but loose enough, a little bit loose, so that you can actually like adjust it, because then you will need to adjust to make sure it's straight so that it's even along this. So we still have a little bit of adjusting to do, but we're gonna get the second one on and then tighten everything off with the Loctite, just so that that space is even between both, so that we don't have it looking crooked. So for now it's on snug-ish, but then we'll loosen off portions of it to kind of adjust it, because it does have some play within each joint to kind of, or a connection point to then kind of adjust to get it straight. So then the next thing that you need to do is take off the license plate holder and then put these back in to fill the holes. And then this piece is actually going to come off. And then the light bulbs need to come out so that you can relocate them. So when you do that on the inside here, you actually want to pull out some of the pins that are holding this in place so that you can pull the wiring harness out farther, because it needs to be able to extend a little bit farther to actually reach the license plate portion on the carrier. So there's usually kind of like those little clips that support this kind of in here. So you just pull those off and then pop this piece off to take the lights out of this, because they were sitting in here. Pop this back in place and then just have these gently dangling. Just be really careful that you obviously don't like bump them and then break a bulb. Your top hole will be 7 inches from the side, and then 1.5 from the bottom of the window. Okay, so you're 3 inches from the edge and 3.25 inches from the bottom up. Where the hole is drilled, there's a large rubber washer and then a large aluminum washer. It doesn't seem like with where the body line works that both will fit. So we're gonna try without the rubber washer and just do the aluminum washer, because even in the video he just said large aluminum washer goes against the body. So we're gonna try that. We could, if we need to, use this rubber washer. It's just gonna have to be cut, but in the video it just says do the metal washer against the body. So we're just gonna try that and see if it works out. So while he's drilling the last hole, this Mercedes door emblem has to come off. So it's just 2 T20 torque bits, and then once it's loose, there's just like a little bit of like a lip, so I just banged it, and then now I'll just clean off all this sticky goop. And then, yeah, it just can't be on there because obviously with it sticking out, you can see it kind of goes in behind that, so it would actually hit the carrier rather than closing, so that needs to come off. Okay, so now that goes in with the big washer, and then obviously again facing up, and then you're gonna reach in behind and put in the back portion of it. So for this one, it does come with the big rubber washer and the aluminum washer. We're just checking to see if this is gonna fit okay. So the big rubber washer on this one does fit, so you'll do the big rubber washer and then the aluminum washer and then the nut on the back of it. So now we've got both those in. He's just snugging it off a bit here, and then we just need to put in the 2 portions there so that we can then put it on. And then once it's on, we'll put the lights in, and then we can adjust it based on the other carrier so that they're even and run parallel to each other. Okay, so as you can see, I pre-installed it this time. We're gonna see if that works better. So just to kind of show you, so the nut goes against there, and then this is then screwed on. I have it screwed in all the way right now, and then once we get it on, then you would spin it, and that lengthens it towards the door so that it takes up that space, so that you basically then have kind of like a foot that is attached. So really simple little system, kind of ingenious, pretty easy to install, but I'll let you know if this system works better, because the other way was quite difficult, the way they showed on their video. So now that we have it kind of just resting, it actually is sitting with quite a bit of space, so that makes it easier. So you're going to feed the lights through into the back here, so then now you can see they are sitting, hanging out, and then we'll get the actual pieces to push in. So as you can see here, this is what you're getting is like that, and then you just push them in. Okay. So again, we did the lights before we did the top and bottom ones, just because it swings away from the door a little bit, so it gave you a little bit more space to run everything through. Once it's actually attached on these points, it's really close to the vehicle. It's like 2.5 inches kind of thing, so hard to do that. And then for this one, we're gonna try it different. We're gonna do the top one first and then do the bottom one down there, just because we found on the last one we really needed it to come up. It was kind of like sagging from the top down, so we're gonna try and tighten this one first to try and pull it up and over, and then do the bottom one, and then I think that'll kind of like pull it up better. So for the driver's side one, we actually did on the top brace the bolt head down and in, and then with the nut underneath. And I think it was a little bit easier to do it that way, which is what they showed in the video. The last one we did the bolt head out and then the nut on top, just because then it was easier to kind of like hold it, but then that made it really difficult to get like an Allen wrench in. We had to use an Allen wrench instead of like a drill. All right, so once you have everything all lined up, then the last step is to put Loctite on all the bolts, and then to put the bolts back on and torque them down. As you can see here, we had to adjust everything to kind of get this line nice and level, and then when the other door is on, they're equal distances apart. So rather than get one person to like reef out on this to get it pushed out as far as possible, we just took like a wrench and just like used it as a pry bar to bring it away and then tighten it. So that seemed to work pretty well. As for things that we learned in terms of the install, obviously don't be stupid like us and measure from the wrong spot. When my husband watched the video, he just said measure from the body line, and because we have windows and they didn't, he misinterpreted the body line and just assumed the top one, which it was not. So you shouldn't be measuring down from a body line, you should be measuring from the window line up. So obviously, mistake learned. We're just gonna put some lights in there to fill up that hole, so I guess one less hole we have to drill down the road, I don't know. But that would be one thing that we learned. Another thing is definitely on this carrier here, we actually did the bolt from the bottom, so bolt head up and then the nut on top, thinking it'd be easier to do it that way. It is not easier to do it that way. On this one, we did bolt head on top and then down and the nut on the inside. It's much easier to install it that way and tighten it off. It's really hard to get like an Allen key or anything in there to actually tighten it off. So I would say definitely bolt head on the top coming down, and then just having Loctite on hand, and then we put Loctite on everything. We just did one bolt at a time, so it didn't harden too quick. So basically we got it positioned and then did one bolt at a time, added the Loctite, and then torqued them off. You're gonna wanna drive for about 100 kilometers or so and then retighten everything off to make sure it's installed. But otherwise, everything else was pretty straightforward in terms of install. was pretty easy. Didn't take us that long if you have 2 people on hand. It's really not that hard. Only about 45 pounds, so they're not even heavy. Like, I could easily carry them, pick them up and hold them. So not really a hard install. The other thing that we learned that was easier too is these kind of like bumper things that you put in. They show in the install in their video to install it once it's on. I installed the second one before and just had it in its shortest mode, where it made it way easier to get on because you didn't have to try to finick in behind these where there's not a lot of clearance. So I would do it that way as well. So just some tips and tricks that make it a little bit easier. As we use them, we'll update you on any changes that we've found or any issues. But really excited about how they look, really excited about using them, and we will keep you posted. Thanks for watching.